John and Ed, they're on patrol, chasing shadows, heart and soul. Cryptid hunter UFO, down this rabbit hole they go. In the woods and on the street, whispers follow their heartbeat. Alien eyes, giant's feet, old got shadows they all meet. Down the rabbit hole they dive, midnight secrets start to thrive. Mysteries keep them alive. In the dark, does truth survive? Haunted houses, midnight calls, endless echoes in the halls. Ghostly memories, secret falls, every clue, they chase them all. Whispers follow their heartbeat. Alien eyes, giant's feet, old got shadows they all meet. Down the rabbit hole they dive, midnight secrets start to thrive. Mysteries keep them alive. In the dark, does truth survive? Haunting walls, they've got the key. Hidden fears, they set them free. Cryptid hunter, you and me. Down this rabbit hole, let's see. Unseen worlds, they've got the key. Hidden fears, they set them free. Cryptid hunter, you and me. Down this rabbit hole, let's see.
Right then, welcome back to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole, where we take your suggestions, completely ignore them, and dive headfirst into the murky waters of conspiracy theories, urban legends, and alleged mysteries. I'm Sergeant Grumpy, your host with 20 years of police experience in separating fact from fiction and of making up charges. And I'm also joined by, as always, my co-host Ed the Techie. Tonight, we're tackling one of the most persistent and elaborate conspiracy theories to emerge from World War II. The legend of Die Glocke, or the bell. Now, this just isn't any old conspiracy theory. This is a multi-layered tale involving Nazi wonder weapons, time travel, anti-gravity technology, UFO crashes in Pennsylvania, and even alleged moon bases. It's got everything a good conspiracy theory needs: mysterious disappearances, classified documents, and just enough real historical elements to make it seem plausible to the unwary. Ed, before we dive into this rabbit hole and you give us your initial take on stories that claim the Nazis were on the verge of mastering technologies that would make modern physics textbooks obsolete, let's say hello to the chat room. And each other. Hello, Ed.
It's probably a good idea. Good evening, everyone.
And good
Hello.
evening. Good evening to
How you
Nick
doing?
to read us. Julie and who else we got in the chat? Rabbit Leader 2030. And this is a much delayed rabbit hole. I think we had 2 weeks of a gap, but hey ho, we are in now. Oh. Right, Ed, your section.
Right. Well, the thing about Nazi super technology stories is they're always built on a bit of half truth, a bit of half fantasy, a few lies thrown in for good measure, probably a whole load of schnapps consumed in the process. Now, the Nazis did develop some genuinely advanced technology for their time. The V2 rocket was revolutionary. Messerschmitt 262 was the world's first operational jet fighter, and they were working on guided missiles. These were real technological achievements that gave them temporary advantages, because with technology, people always catch up. But here's where the conspiracy theorists take that grain of truth and build a mountain of speculation. They argue that if the Nazis could develop rockets and jets, then surely they must have been working on anti-gravity devices and time machines. But unfortunately, that's a logical fallacy. Just because someone can build a sophisticated internal combustion engine doesn't mean that they're developing secret teleportation technology. Now, the Nazis were very interested in that stuff. Hitler was fascinated by the occult.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there were some extremely advanced German scientists, people like Victor Schauberger, who were doing, I mean, you had, what's his name? Rocket Man. I can't.
That's a NATO guy, not NATO, NASA guy. Werner von Braun. Yeah.
So they were very smart Nazis doing some very interesting technology things. But this particular story is a bit of a stretch, I've always thought. So I mean, I love the story. I would actually love it for it to be true. But the Die Glocke story specifically emerges from this pattern of half-truths and lies, and sometimes the Allies were doing it to scare their own populations. Sometimes the Germans were releasing it to make the Allies think they were more advanced than they were. It takes the very real and well-documented Project Riese, a massive underground construction project in Lower Silesia, which is in Poland, and uses it as the backdrop for an increasingly fantastic claim. Project Riese was real, extensive, and mysterious in its incomplete state, which makes it perfect conspiracy theory material. What's particularly insidious about the Die Glocke story is how it's presented with just enough technical detail to sound plausible to non-experts, while completely ignoring fundamental physics principles.
Well, that's always a good start, isn't it? Ignore physics. Well, to be fair though, physics it gets it wrong a lot of times, so there's nothing wrong with pushing the boundaries. And as always, that brings us to where the whole Die Glocke story actually begins, not in some secret Nazi laboratory in 1943, but in a Polish journalist's book published in the year 2000. The entire modern Die Glocke legend can be traced back to one man, Igor Witkowski. Now, as someone who's spent 2 decades interviewing witnesses and evaluating evidence, let me tell you what immediately raises red flags about Witkowski's account. In his book, The Truth About the Wonder Weapons, Witkowski claims he was shown transcript of interrogations of SS officer Jakob Sporrenberg. That's a good Scottish name, isn't it? Sporrenberg in 1997. According to Witkowski, these transcripts contain detailed information about a secret Nazi device called Die Glocke. And here's the problem, and it's not a little one, it's a big one. These transcripts have never been produced for independent verification. No historian, no archive, no institution has confirmed their existence. In the day, we would call this hearsay based on unavailable evidence, i.e. not worth the paper it's written on. It's equivalent of me saying, I saw a document that proves aliens landed in Glasgow, but I can't show it to you because it's classified. Handy that. Comes up a lot in Congress as well. The story was then popularised by British aviation journalist Nick Cook in his 2001 book, The Hunt for 0 Point. Cook took Witkowski's unverified claims and expanded them into an elaborate narrative connecting Die Glocke to anti-gravity research and secret post-war technology transfers. Operation Paperclip. We've spoke about that a few times. What we have here then is the classic case of source contamination. One unverified claim gets amplified and embellished until it becomes an entire mythology.
So, I think...
Hey,
got a little
cheers,
donation
Dave. Thank you. Appreciate it, mate. Appreciate it. Don't know what a gyroscopic Propolitan machine is, Robin, but I think you make a lot of things up. I do love you. I do love you. Right, sorry, Ed.
Right, so, no, it's fine. I think we should examine what Witkowski and Cook claim this device actually was, because the technical specifications they provided are quite detailed, which is often a hallmark of elaborate hoaxes. According to their accounts, Die Glocke was a bell-shaped device approximately 9 feet wide and 12 to 15 feet high, made of hard, heavy metal. The device allegedly featured 2 counter-rotating cylinders filled with mercury-like substance with a violet hue codenamed 0525. When activated, it supposedly produced a pale blue light, a humming sound, and various deadly effects on living tissue. Now, here's where the technical background becomes relevant, because the mysterious 0525 substance bears remarkable similarities to descriptions of red mercury, a substance that's been thoroughly debunked by the scientific community as a hoax. Red mercury was alleged to be a powerful explosive or nuclear material that could enable the construction of compact nuclear weapons. It's been investigated extensively. No evidence of its existence has ever been found. The physics claims around Die Glocke are equally problematic. The device was supposedly capable of generating anti-gravity fields through torsion field manipulation. Recent research at CERN has conclusively demonstrated that antimatter responds to gravity exactly like normal matter, which effectively disproves the anti-gravity concept central to the Die Glocke theories. The claimed capabilities simply don't align with known physics principles, and the technical descriptions read like science fiction rather than engineering specifications. Now, we should point out that the state of human physics doesn't have all of the answers to everything in the known universe.
Absolutely not.
So there might be something relating to anti-gravity that is missing or not known about yet. But as we understand it right now, it's not possible. And the substance, this red mercury that they talk about, there's just no evidence that it's ever existed or that it exists or anything like that. I mean, it might be hidden, but such things are difficult to keep hidden forever.
So Robin says that his friend says, if you build a big enough gyroscope, it could generate power. Problem is it breaks its moorings and takes flight. Does it? Does it though? I mean, I've seen gyroscopes, you spin them up and you put them in a position and it will stay there. But it doesn't try and take off, does it? It stays where it is. In fact, I've even seen gyroscopes that aren't anchored as such. They're just sitting in a cup, like a ball and socket joint, and you can move it around and it will stay in the position you leave it in as long as it's spinning. And it falls down, obviously, when it stops. So I'm not sure about this gyroscope theory of yours, Robin, or your friends. But let's get back to the story at hand. Right, let's talk about the key historical figures in this story, because understanding who these people actually were versus how they're portrayed in Die Glocke theories reveals a lot about the reliability of the claims. First, we have SS Obergruppenführer Hans Klammer. Not the skier.
Kammler.
Oh, sorry, Kammler. Before his time. He's often cited as the administrator of Die Glocke project. Now, Kammler was a real person, a brutal Nazi official, aren't they all, who oversaw construction of concentration camps and later managed secret weapons programs. That's a diverse portfolio, isn't it? His mysterious disappearance at the end of World War II. Let's look. Let's have a dig around Argentina sometime. Has fueled decades of speculation about whether he traded knowledge of advanced Nazi technology to the Americans in exchange for freedom. So, what my experience tells me about missing persons cases, when someone disappears under chaotic circumstances during the collapse of a regime, or even if their mum's fallen out with them, the most likely explanation is usually the simplest. Kammler probably either died in the chaos or successfully fled, like many other Nazi officials. The idea that he escaped with time travel technology requires us to accept far more extraordinary assumptions. And then there's the aforementioned Jacob Sporenberg, the SS officer allegedly interrogated about Die Glocke. Sporenberg was indeed a war criminal, but his documented activities focused on anti-partisan operations and mass murder, specifically Operation Harvest Festival, the systematic killing of that certain group in occupied Poland. His verified interrogation records deal with these crimes and not exotic technology projects. The pattern here is taking real historical figures and retrofitting them into a speculative narrative without credible evidence connecting them to the claimed activities. It's not looking good so far.
Well, no, I mean, it's until we started the research for this one, I thought that the Die Glocke story was a lot older. But let's talk about Project Riese, because this is where the story intersects with documented history. And it's crucial to understand what actually happened versus what conspiracy theorists claim. Project Riese was absolutely real, a massive Nazi construction project between 1943 and 1945 that created a network of underground tunnels and facilities in the Owl Mountains of Lower Silesia. The scale was absolutely enormous, and the construction used
Owl Mountains. Owls. We'll need to look into that.
Owl.
Owl. Yeah, we need to look into that.
The scale was enormous, and the construction used concentration camp labor, resulting in thousands of deaths. But here's what the historical evidence actually tells us about Project Riese's purpose. It was intended for conventional weapons production and potentially as a secure headquarters for Nazi leadership safe from Allied bombing. We have extensive documentation, survivor testimonies, and German industrial records that support this conclusion. The conspiracy theorists point to a mysterious concrete structure near the Wenceslas mine, dubbed the Henge, as evidence of exotic technology testing. Now, I've looked at the engineering analysis of this structure, and historians and engineers who studied it conclude it was most likely a cooling tower for an industrial facility or an incomplete construction project. It lacks any specific features that would connect it to anti-gravity experiments. What's particularly telling is that multiple Allied intelligence operations systematically investigated these facilities during and after the war. T-Force, the Alsos mission, Operation Lusty, and others, which were comprehensive, well-documented operations designed to capture any advanced Nazi technology. If revolutionary anti-gravity devices existed, these operations would have discovered and exploited them.
Yeah.
And it is a fact that the Germans were known to have advanced weapons like the V1 and V2 rockets.
Yeah.
And the Allies absolutely, all the Soviets and the Americans and the British and the French, they all went on a hunt for Hitler's super weapons after the war.
Yeah, and they weren't far away from creating an atomic weapon either.
No, not at all. I think it was heavy water or something. There was certain key inputs that they didn't have.
Deuterium, yeah.
Deuterium, that's one.
Yep. So Ed's absolutely right about the intelligence operations, and this is where things become particularly relevant. I've reviewed the declassified documents from operations like Operation Paperclip, and we have looked at that on a number of occasions ourselves. And the scope of Allied technology recovery efforts was massive and systematic and comprehensive. They went through everything. And Operation Paperclip successfully transferred over 1,600 German scientists and engineers to American programs, including rocket pioneer Werner von Braun. The T-Force operations in Lower Silesia specifically targeted the areas where Die Glocke was allegedly developed, focusing on preventing advanced Nazi technology from falling into Soviet hands. And here's what's crucial from an investigative standpoint. These operations were thorough, well documented, and largely successful in their conventional objectives. They captured Nazi rocket technology. They captured jet engine designs. They captured submarine innovations and chemical weapons research. The resulting American programs like Project Hermes and Operation Bumblebee successfully developed new military technologies based on captured Nazi research. And here's a critical question. If the Americans captured revolutionary anti-gravity technology in 1945, why would they continue spending billions on conventional rocket development through the 50s and 60s? Why would they pursue the expensive and dangerous Apollo program using chemical rockets if they possess superior anti-gravity propulsion? The technology gap between alleged capabilities and actual post-war development represents one of the strongest arguments against Die Glocke being a functional anti-gravity device. This whole,
one of the things that always comes up. Oh, go on.
Sorry, the whole thing where people say, yeah, but they kept it secret. Why? Why would they keep it secret? If they had anti-grav technology, they would be masters of the world. Now, you've seen what America does with all its military might. Imagine if it had super advanced secret technology in the background. Do you think they could even think about hiding that? They'd be flaunting it at every opportunity. You'd step out of line and they'd go, no, we are going to bring you down from space, or we're going to take you back in time and watch your mother being killed before you were born.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there are always the rumors that the military is 20 years ahead in technology and stuff like that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have some sort of anti-gravity.
Yeah, they don't.
And also, one of the things that I've thought recently, particularly with the number of conflicts that the US is embroiled in around the world, and how, I mean, even just today, they've suspended weapon shipments to Ukraine because they're doing a massive audit and they don't think they've got the weapons. Now, if you had something in your back pocket that was super advanced, that would essentially give you automatic dominance over the Russians and the Chinese in the military sphere, surely now would kind of be the time to use it, or to at least demonstrate it to the world somehow.
That's a great point, Ed. And Hatchie says Black Ops is not there for the public to see. That's fair enough. But having said that, Hatchie, if you had something like anti-gravity that could make a massive difference, yet you still lost wars in Korea, Vietnam, kinda Iraq, Afghanistan, and now Ukraine, would you not think that they maybe think it's time to bring out the big guns? Yeah, they don't have it, mate. If they had it, they'd have used it. There is no way the Americans cannot use something they've had, you know? I mean, look at the stealth fighter. They were flying that around and people were seeing it for years because they were itching to use it. And as soon as they got the chance in Iraq, whoa, let's use the stealth fighter, you know? So yeah,
And also the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. I mean, it's
yeah,
surprisingly triangular and wing-shaped. And who knows that people who were in the US seeing triangular UFOs, that maybe they're mistaking it for secret tests of the stealth fighter.
yeah.
Now, one of the things with Die Glocke that always comes up is the Kecksburg connection, which is also one of the more intriguing aspects of the story, admittedly, which is the connection to the 1965 Kecksburg UFO incident in Pennsylvania. This is where conspiracy theory really goes off the reservation, but it's also where it becomes most compelling to believers. On December the 9th, 1965, thousands of witnesses across 6 US states and Ontario, Canada, reported seeing a brilliant fireball streak across the afternoon sky. The object appeared to crash near Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, and witnesses described seeing a bronze-colored acorn-shaped metallic object with hieroglyphic-like markings. Die Glocke theorists argue that this was actually a Nazi bell that had somehow survived from 1945 and was being transported or tested. The physical similarities are indeed striking, both objects described as metallic, bell or acorn-shaped, with mysterious markings. But here's where the time travel element gets really bizarre. Some theorists propose that Die Glocke was actually a time machine, and that the 1965 crash represents Nazi personnel attempting to escape the end of World War II by jumping exactly 20 years into the future. The precision of this timing, May 1945 to December 1965, is presented as evidence of deliberate temporal manipulation. From a technical standpoint, this requires us to accept that the Nazis were not only developing anti-gravity technology, but they'd also mastered time travel, all while their conventional military was collapsing and they were running out of basic resources like fuel and ammunition. Just the logistics alone are implausible.
They are kind of, aren't they? Because, I mean, let's face it, they couldn't even make Coca-Cola. They had to invent Fanta because they couldn't get the ingredients to make Coke.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And the other thing about time travel that people don't consider is that the Earth is moving around the sun, and the sun is moving around the center of the galaxy, which means that if you were to time travel from your exact location now forward 20 years or back 20 years, you'd probably end up in space.
Yeah, so you'd have to...
The planet wouldn't be there.
You'd have to time travel in both time and space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just like the TARDIS does.
I mean, obviously, maybe the TARDIS has a way of compensating for the space aspect of it, but you're right. You can't just time travel. You have to time space travel.
Yeah, yeah. It's like do you remember the Time Machine when the H.G. Wells movie and I'm thinking back to the original one when he pushes the levers forward and the thing starts whirring around and you see everything changing around him, but he's firmly anchored to that spot, you know. And at one point, I think building appears around him and then it disappears again and all this. But that wouldn't be the case if you were traveling through time, because how could you anchor yourself to the spot? And, well, maybe you can. I don't know. I'm not a physicist.
I don't know how that would work.
Yeah.
It's an important thing to remember that time and space don't exist without each other.
Yeah.
And so
indeed. Something to consider. So let's take a step back and apply some basic evidentiary standards to these claims. In police work, we use a principle called... No, we don't. But there is a principle called extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. I think it was Carl Sagan that coined it. The more improbable a claim, the stronger the evidence needed to support it. And, you know, that's effectively true. Die Glocke theories require us to accept multiple extraordinary claims simultaneously. So we've got to believe that Nazi Germany developed anti-gravity technology during a war. They mastered time travel during a war. They established secret moon bases. We'll come to that. During a war. The technology survived the war and remained operational for decades because, how else would you get things travelling through time? And multiple governments have successfully concealed this for 80 years. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. So the evidence that's been presented to us to back up these extraordinary, claims are completely unverified interrogation transcripts that no one else can examine or has seen. Misidentified industrial structures like the base for our cooling tower, and anecdotal witness accounts, as well as speculation based on real but unrelated historical events. NASA has officially attributed the Kecksburg incident to the re-entry of a Soviet satellite, Cosmos 96, which failed in its mission to Venus and re-entered Earth's atmosphere on December the 9th, 1965. While NASA claims to have lost their investigation records, that's handy. NASA's pretty good at losing records.
They are terrible at losing records.
Aren't they?
They lost all of their shit about the moon landings.
Yeah.
The reason that we're struggling to go back to the moon is because when NASA did it the first time, they didn't
take notes.
Good enough care of their notes and stuff.
So that's
what the hell?
That's conventional explanation, if we can believe it. But then again, see, this is the problem. Because from an evidential point of view, NASA's making a statement that they can't back up. But that would account for the observed fireball without requiring exotic technology. So what we could do, though, is we should be able to track down and find out if Cosmos 96 did land or did re-enter the atmosphere. Probably Russia would be a good point to start, but that's quite difficult to do just now. So the pattern here is classic conspiracy thinking, taking unexplained events and filling the gaps with increasingly elaborate speculation rather than the prosaic. Because let's face it, usually the simplest explanation is the explanation.
And there's always a book involved.
Yeah.
I mean, in both cases, the people that are pushing this Die Glocke theory both wrote books.
Yeah.
But let's break down the evidence quality across the different categories, because this really illustrates how conspiracy theories construct apparent plausibility from unreliable sources, sometimes, not all the time. The confirmed historical evidence we've got is the Project Riese facilities, Nazi advanced weapons programs, and Operation Paperclip, which are thoroughly documented through military records, survivor testimony, and declassified files. This represents the solid foundation that gives Die Glocke theories their original credibility. Next, we have documented but limited evidence. Allied intelligence operations like T-Force and the Alsos missions are well documented, but their focus was on conventional technology recovery. No exotic technology discoveries are recorded in available files. Now, you could argue that, of course, they wouldn't be, but it's also, you have to look at the totality of the evidence, not just one or two bits of it. Next, we have the speculative evidence, which is Hans Kammler's disappearance and potential deal with American forces, which relies on circumstantial evidence and recent investigative research that, while intriguing, doesn't prove extraordinary technology transfer. Then we have the unreliable evidence, and the core Die Glocke claims rest on unverified interrogation transcripts, misidentified structures, and witness accounts that can't be independently corroborated. What's particularly telling is that many relevant documents remain classified through programs like the CIA's recruitment of Nazi personnel. Conspiracy theorists point to this ongoing classification as evidence of cover-ups, but classification more likely protects sensitive intelligence methods rather than revolutionary technology. The scientific feasibility scores particularly low. The claimed physics principles contradict established scientific understanding and recent experimental results. Now, none of that says that this absolutely didn't happen, but as you said before, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and we just don't have the latter.
Yeah, I think you're right, Ed. I think that's the problem, and that's what's quite fascinating about Die Glocke. It isn't whether it actually existed, because the evidence quite clearly points to the fact that it didn't. But why this story has such enduring appeal and how it's spread so effectively. So the legend gained significant traction through television programs like the History Channel's Ancient Aliens and similar shows that present speculative theories as plausible historical scenarios. These programs have enormous reach and often present information with professional production values that can make even dubious claims seem credible. And there's also the influence of authors like Joseph P. Farrell, who is a cracking read. I've read his books. They've developed extensive theoretical frameworks connecting Die Glocke to various conspiracy theories through multiple books. While these works present detailed speculative scenarios, they rely heavily on secondary sources and lack primary documentation. They are, in effect, works of fiction. From my perspective, Die Glocke represents what I call retrofitted mythology, taking genuine historical mysteries and unexplained events and then weaving them together with speculation to create a compelling narrative. This story touches on real elements. Nazi Germany did develop advanced technologies. Project Riese remains partially mysterious. Key Nazi personnel did disappear under very unclear circumstances. And the Kecksburg incident did occur, and it remains largely unexplained and certainly not documented accurately. But connecting these dots requires enormous leaps of logic and acceptance of claims that violate known physics. It's the difference between saying something unusual happened and therefore time-travelling Nazis with anti-gravity technology crashed in Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's a stretch, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the Nazis were bad enough in their own time period, but having time-traveling Nazis with anti-gravity technology, it's genuinely terrifying.
Yeah.
And you would think they would be a little bit more competent than to crash in Pennsylvania. But what concerns me about the persistence of stories like Die Glocke is how they can distort public understanding of both history and science. When people believe that revolutionary technologies were developed 80 years ago, but are being suppressed by shadowy forces, it can lead to unrealistic expectations about current technology and scientific progress. The reality is that genuine technological advancement is incremental and well documented. The path from the Wright brothers' first flight to modern aviation is clearly traceable through patents, test records, and evolutionary developments. Similarly, our current understanding of physics, including why anti-gravity as described in these theories isn't feasible, comes from decades of rigorous experimentation and peer review. Now, that's not to say that science is infallible, because it clearly isn't. And that's not to say that, I mean, some technologies were actually fairly revolutionary. I mean, things like lasers and microchips.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the microchip comes out of pretty much nowhere. I mean, it was theorized by Germans, and it just sort of appears in American labs after the Second World War. And there's a lot of speculation that maybe these technologies emanated from the crash in Roswell. I mean, these theories are out there. But what we're here to do is to try and unpack some of this stuff and just chuck away some of the hype and hyperbole and just look at the nuts and bolts. What evidence have we got? What do we actually know? What can we prove? But the Die Glocke story also intersects with broader Nazi UFO theories that have unfortunately been co-opted by certain political groups to suggest that Nazi technology was more advanced than Allied science. This can contribute to historical revisionism that minimizes the genuine evil of Nazi ideology while inflating their technological capabilities. From a media literacy standpoint, Die Glocke serves as an excellent case study in how to evaluate sources, The story demonstrates how unverified claims can be amplified through multiple retellings. Real historical elements can be misrepresented to support speculation. Professional presentation doesn't guarantee accurate content, and extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, as we've said. It's a reminder that critical thinking skills are absolutely essential when consuming information, particularly about controversial topics, conspiracy theories, anything that's slightly left field or out of the ordinary, or any extraordinary claims. You really have to put them under the microscope.
You do.
And okay,
yeah.
you can say, well, modern physics doesn't necessarily understand everything about the universe, and governments are definitely hiding things.
They are, yeah.
But you do have to operate within the realms of what makes sense. And also, we have to remember our good friend William of Ockham and his razor. So yeah.
Yeah, so let's be quite clear about something, people. Just because we are debunking the Die Glocke story, it doesn't mean we're dismissing all the unusual phenomena or claiming that governments never keep secrets, because we know they do. There are genuine mysteries in history. There are unexplained events that deserve investigation. And there are classified technologies that will remain hidden for legitimate security reasons. But the problem with Die Glocke is that they've moved far beyond reasonable speculation into the realm of elaborate fantasy. When we apply basic investigative principles, verifying sources, checking claims against known facts, requiring corroboration evidence, the story falls apart. But here's what's interesting. The real history of Nazi technology development and Allied intelligence operations is actually more fascinating than this kind of mythology. The genuine stories of scientists working under extreme pressure, the massive undertaking of Project Riese, built with slave labour, the post-war race to capture Nazi technology between the West and the East. These are compelling historical narratives. They don't require anti-gravity devices to be remarkable.
Mm-hmm. And let's not forget places like Bletchley Park.
Yeah.
And,
It
was the first.
And
the first computers came out.
Radar. Radar as well.
Radar. Yeah.
For our viewers who are interested in investigating unusual phenomena, Die Glocke offers valuable lessons in methodology. Always ask who's making the claim. What evidence supports it? Can it be independently verified? Does it contradict established knowledge? And if so, is the evidence strong enough to warrant it? These are the same principles we apply to every topic we cover. I mean, we usually, to be fair, end up debunking much of the stuff that we like to think we'd love to believe in. But when you put it under the microscope and in the cold light of day, a lot of it doesn't stand up. It just doesn't stand up. And now,
but there are things that we haven't debunked. I mean, there are things like the moon landing.
Yeah.
One that pops off the top of my head. 9/11, JFK. I mean, there are plenty of areas of conspiracy lore where the conspiracy theories make more sense than the conventional explanation.
Yeah,
by a mile. So, where does this leave us with Die Glocke? After examining the origins, the evidence, the historical context, and the scientific plausibility, the conclusion is clear. Die Glocke, as described in conspiracy literature, almost certainly never existed. And I mean, personally, I think it's a shame because I love this advanced technology stuff. But sometimes you do have to just accept it.
You do.
The story appears to be a modern construction which is built on unverified source material from a single author, misinterpretation of real but conventional historical events, speculation that violates established physics principles, a desire to believe in hidden technologies and suppress knowledge. But the persistence of the legend tells us something important about human psychology and how we process information. Stories like Die Glocke fulfill a psychological need for mystery, for the possibility that the world is more extraordinary than it appears, and for explanations that make complex historical events seem more dramatic and purposeful than they really were. Now, the thing about the world is that it absolutely is more extraordinary than it appears. You don't have to delve into conspiracy theories to find genuine mysteries.
You don't.
And
You don't.
and quite often historical events that we think we understand are actually a lot more complicated than our school textbooks would make out.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to start making up things about Nazi wonder weapons.
Wunderwaff.
Wunderwaffens.
Wunderwaffen. So you're exactly right, Ed. And that brings us to the end of tonight's journey down that particular rabbit hole. Well, our part, because we're going to turn it over to you guys. So we've taken apart the Die Glocke legend piece by piece. We've examined the evidence and found it wanting. But we've also seen how real historical mysteries can be transformed into elaborate mythologies through speculation, repetition, and the human desire for extraordinary explanations. So remember, being skeptical doesn't mean being closed-minded. It means demanding good evidence, damn good evidence, for extraordinary claims, and being willing to follow that evidence wherever it leads, even if it's less exciting than the alternative. So, the couple of questions I have for the troll room and those watching. First of all, what do you think of the more scripted versions of the rabbit holes that we're doing? Are you enjoying them, or do you find them annoying or different? So we're trying to put some structure into it so as we know where we're going, because when we did rabbit holes in the past, we kind of just used a rough outline and we would go off on a lot of tangents. This tends to keep us focused on the case in hand. And there's always plenty of time at the end to talk about it. So that's one thing. And the next thing is, what do you guys think about Die Glocke? I mean, Hatchie, he reckons we've got anti-gravity technology and we're just hiding it. I've got to say we don't. I mean, I've said my piece earlier, and I don't think we have. Hatchie,
I'd like to think we have. No, I'd like to think that we have.
I can't see it. I can't see us not using it though. Can't see us having it for this long and nobody's used it for any purpose, you know.
Sure. I mean, particularly given where the state of the world is in 2025 and the state of the American empire and the way it's being challenged, particularly by the Chinese and the Russians, and just things like not being able to supply Ukraine with enough artillery shells. Now, if they had some sort of directed energy weapon that they could use to defeat the Russians on the Ukrainian battlefield, given how...
I mean, they would.
Don't you think that they would do it?
Oh, of course they would. Of course they would. I mean, their whole thing about the proxy war was to give Russia a bloody nose and make it, make them ripe for the regime change.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gone completely the wrong way. It's made Putin more popular than ever.
Yeah. And it's actually made Russia more powerful than ever militarily.
I know. Yeah. It's
now,
crazy.
what Hatchie is saying about renewable energies, I do think that there is energy tech that is suppressed simply because oil and windmills allow for control, and some of the magnetic engines and perpetual energy and some of the classified Tesla stuff. I mean, who knows what's out there and it's being classified, but the thing with that is it's classified for economic reasons, because it takes away power and control from the established
it's like that guy, and the guys mentioned it earlier. That guy Mayer who had the water powered car, right? So that's basically a hydrogen car, yeah. Because
It's now mainstream because I think Toyota.
Well,
Is it Toyota?
yeah, he would.
One of the car companies says that hydrogen is the future, and they've come up with an
Yeah.
electrolysis system that lets you run a car on water.
Exactly. So this guy maybe had that electrolysis system in that car. You don't see it though. That's the problem, and you haven't had the chance to examine it because how much power was that using, and how far could he actually go? So it's difficult to quantify these things. But you know, I mean, we have had solar panels since the 1800s. You know, think
and
about
still
that.
Just as crap.
Well, they're actually not quite as crap because I think the first solar panel had an efficiency of around 12%. About 1886 or 96, something like that. And current solar panels have an efficiency of around 35%. So the solar panels aren't great, and they cost a fortune to make, and they use a pile of toxic materials, and they're not biodegradable or recyclable in any real way.
And what Robin says about who invented supersonic missiles, I'm not entirely sure. But the thing with ballistic missiles is because they go suborbital, when they come back down, gravity ensures that they end up going supersonic because of just the speed that they're traveling.
Well,
what's more interesting is actually the hypersonic missiles. But then this kind of reinforces what we're saying about if they'd have these technologies, why wouldn't they use them?
Yeah.
Because if they had some sort of directed energy weapons, why would they not be using them to shoot these hypersonic missiles out of the sky or out of space or whatever?
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of letting them rain down on allies.
Well, you don't want to use the technology in case you let the people know that we've got the technology. But hold on.
But when your cities are getting blown up, surely that's the time that you start using the technology.
We use it in places like Hawaii and Malibu, you know. And we pick out people who paint their houses different colours. Which always gets me because everybody paints the roof blue, and yet that picture from Maui with the one house that didn't get burned has a completely red roof.
Maybe the blue paint had been burnt off.
No, it was all to do with the positioning of the house. It's nothing to do with the colour of the roof. It's just absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I just, if you believe in direct energy weapons, I'm sorry. I'm just going to mock you from here to the end of eternity. It's just, there's no way. Oh, of course, we used them to take down 9/11 as well, didn't we? Yeah.
Well, we've done a rabbit hole about that one.
What, dustification and all that?
Theories from Judy Wood.
Yeah, but when you look at how things fall, especially when they fall fast, they leave a pile of dust behind. You know.
But can we just say for the record, those towers, they fell as if they were unsupported. They didn't pancake. And he said anyone that tries to claim they're pancaking doesn't understand physics.
We've done 9/11.
Paying attention.
We've done 9/11 a couple of times, and we are not in disagreement about how the towers came down. They definitely didn't come down naturally. That's not how a skyscraper comes down on its own. In fact, and I'll say this again, although I've said it a lot, there has never been a steel-framed skyscraper brought down by fire.
Never before, never since.
Never before 9/11.
I saw one caught fire in Malaysia or somewhere like that, and I posted it on Twitter. It's like now I'm waiting for it to collapse into its own footprint at free full speed. I'm assuming it's going to take about an hour.
There was a hotel in Madrid, I think it was, that burned for 3 days, and it's still in use today as a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
They don't fall down through fire. And yet 3 of them did that day in September. Strange that.
Very strange.
Right. So anyway, there we go, people. I hope you enjoyed that.
So what do people think about the show? Hang on. What have we got any comments about the show?
Nectaridis said he liked it. He said it was all good for me. Sarge rabbit holes are like detective stories. Makes you think. Yeah, well, they kind of are.
That's kind of how we're trying to treat them because of your police background. And I'm the one that is I'm definitely less skeptical and more likely to believe something like Die Glocke, whereas you take a much more policey sort of skeptical, give me evidence sort of approach.
Yeah.
Which I think works for a show like this. You have it's kind of good cop, bad cop type thing.
Yeah. Yeah. What was I going to say? If you like detective stories, I've got one that I just recorded this morning on the Glasgow airport terror attack in 2007. And actually, I didn't pay that much attention to it and when it happened, even though it's literally 10 minutes from where I'm sitting right now. But it's quite interesting, and I actually had some information from a source within the police, which I cannot verify or substantiate. So, I can't corroborate that evidence. I can only tell you what I was told. So it is complete and utter hearsay. But it kind of makes sense when you actually look at what happened and all the things that occurred after it. If you watch it, it's I think you'll find it interesting. It's going to be a true crime one. I've still to put it up, so it'll probably be up. I think maybe Saturday because tomorrow's all in day, so maybe Saturday, and then there'll be another one on maybe Monday or Tuesday. When's the 7th? Monday, Tuesday.
Monday's the 7th.
So I'll try and put up the 7/7 bombings on Monday because I've got one for that as well. And then Ed and I can maybe chat about these on next week's Rabbit Hole. Or is there something that you'd like us to consider? If you have something, give us a shout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you got something that you've always wanted to have investigated, or something that we've never discussed that you'd really like us to cover, then drop it into the chat box and we're more than happy to look at it. And while you're in there, make sure you like the show, please, and hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to the channel, because that helps us teeny weeny channels out.
Right. So what's Robin saying about the moon laser? What about the moon laser, Robin? You need to tell me what you mean about the moon laser. I can tell you something about the moon laser though, because I looked into this when I was younger because I was intrigued. Because remember the Big Bang Theory had an episode where they were shooting a laser at the moon and watching it come back to them and recording how far away the moon was. And I thought that was strange, because when I worked it out, and using a green laser, I think, which is what they were pretty much available at the time. So they left I think they left a meter wide or a meter diagonal laser reflector on the moon. And the idea being that you would, down here on Earth, bounce a laser off it and come back, and that would give you the time. I don't think they sent a laser to the moon. They just left a reflector there, mate. But
that's my understanding as well.
Yeah, that was my understanding. But anyway, so when you work it out, by the time the laser comes back to the Earth, and lasers are effectively just light, it's coherent, so it stays in a tighter beam. But by the time it gets back to Earth, I worked it out as it's 5 miles wide. So when it got to the moon, it would be over a mile wide. So I don't know why you bother with a 1 meter laser reflector. The moon's got quite a high albedo anyway, so you probably just bounce off the regolith and come back. But
the moon is so reflective that when we have a full moon in the sky, it reflects so much of the sun's light that it can not quite turn night into day, but You
Yeah.
can certainly do things by it that you couldn't do if there's no moon.
Nectarine says, don't forget to watch Iron Sky. Yeah, that is a scream. I have seen Iron Sky. It is a scream. It's funny. In fact, maybe I should do a review on it. I could really rip that one apart. I did a review on F1, the movie, and surprisingly watchable. Absolutely.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Surprisingly watchable. You know, you don't need to know anything about F1. In fact, the less you know about F1, the better, because it makes a few real gaffes. But it just rips up the rule book and everything, and but it commits to its own version of Formula One. And Brad Pitt's brilliant in it. I'll give him that. I thought it was going to be crap. I thought I was going to tear it apart, but no, I really enjoyed it. It's worth a watch. Yeah.
Interesting. And it's not very often I hear you say that about a movie.
Yeah, it's Top Gun, except with cars.
You can't go wrong with a bit of Top Gun.
You can.
And cars.
You can. As I said in the actual review, it's Top Gun with cars and without the trauma of a dead goose.
and also you get Brad Pitt is arguably less irritating than
Tom.
Yeah.
Although,
I mean, Brad Pitt I've seen
smooth.
him in some diabolical films, but when he's on form, and he's got a script and a character that
he was
kind
smooth.
of designed for him, he's superb. He's been absolutely brilliant in some of his movies.
Very smooth operator in this movie. He was good. I mean, quite believable if you it's not believable. You have to suspend your belief to go and watch movies like this. But the movie commits to it, so it's easy to do. It's worth a watch. You
kind of have to always suspend disbelief when you go and watch a movie, just because.
Yeah, you do. Yeah,
that's the whole point. You want to be carried away by the story, and if you spend the whole time picking holes in the story, you just don't enjoy it.
Yeah, but some stories don't allow you to suspend disbelief. It's like 28 years later. That's just awful. It really is awful. I mean, I don't know why he bothered. I really don't. It's just fucking awful. And you know what? I actually had a comment from someone, because I ripped it apart in the review, and someone commented saying that it was that bad they nearly walked out the cinema halfway through it. That's how bad it was. And you know how much it costs to go to the cinema these days. So if you're walking out, you're actually making a statement. But yeah, so I felt quite vindicated that it's a terrible movie. Don't watch it. Just run away the other way. It's that bad. Danny Boyle, you really, really screwed up, mate. Really did.
Yeah, Danny, if you're listening, no.
Yeah.
Just don't.
Bad movie. And the Jimmy Savile character at the end, you know. Scottish Jimmy Savile in a velour tracksuit. That's all we needed. Anyway, Robin says, is helium-3 the fuel of the future of power? Ah, right, sorry. I thought Robin's spelling
the Chinese
is
are mining
atrocious.
helium-3 on the dark side of the moon.
Yes, apparently. But who's to know? Who is to know? The Joker movie, what won? The second one. The first one was actually pretty good. And we might have the disagreement there, Dave, but quite enjoyed the first Joker movie with Wacom Phoenix. But the second one was awful, just woeful. Yeah, right.
The problem with sequels is that they just, I don't know, the as good as there aren't that many sequels that I enjoy anywhere as much as the original movie. Although I'd say
not many.
Top Gun Maverick, I actually did, because the first Top Gun, it's just America, fuck yeah kind of movie. With
it was
lots
jingoism,
and
yeah.
But at the same time, it was still it still sucks you in, and you still kind of enjoy it, and you're watching it for its own sake rather than because it was a sequel of a film you really enjoyed.
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah, Maverick one was okay. Although it was Star Wars. It was just Star Wars. I mean, it was a whole movie built around the drop a bomb down a 3-foot hole thing, exactly like Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah,
much.
Dave says it's a musical. Aye, that's the second one. Yeah, the second one's appalling. First one was okay. That was good. Right, so there we go. I've enjoyed that this evening.
Yeah,
That
it's
was
fun.
good. And I'm sorry for the
interesting.
break, but these things happen. But yeah. So Die Glocke. I haven't seen anything in the chat. If you want to come up with something about what we want to do next, or we'll just pick something, you can always drop it in the comments or whatever.
Mhm.
Other than that, I think it's been great. How's it been for you, Ed?
I've enjoyed it. It's good fun.
It's been great for me, and it's been great for you.